Hey guys, welcome to the Northwestern Business Review. My name is Sophia.
And my name is Jackson, and we'll be your hosts for today's show.
So Jackson, tell me, what is the Northwestern Business Review and what do we do?
Great question. NBR is the premier undergraduate business publication at Northwestern University. In addition to this video channel, we also have quarterly newsletters and a website, linked down below, where you can find articles in finance, technology, sports, politics, and more. At NBR, we want to bring our audience reliable information while serving as an outlet for professors and students alike.
With that in mind, the purpose of this channel is to promote dialogue about the important issues in today's business world. In each of our videos, we'll be focusing on a specific topic that we think deserves more attention, and we'll also be including an exclusive interview with a renowned guest speaker. And that brings us to today's topic, which is the European debt crisis, and our guest speaker, Professor Mark Witte.
Professor Witte is currently the director of the Undergraduate Economics Department and the Business Institutions program at Northwestern University. He's also a distinguished senior lecturer and recipient of the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences Distinguished Teaching Award. Professor Witte's main area of interest is in macroeconomics, more specifically public finance. During our interview, he explains the causes of the European debt crisis, the proposed solutions, and its effects on the global market.
So the first question we have is, what do you think is the cause of the European debt crisis?
Well, there's a very bad recession there and a very restrictive monetary authority and the system is designed to discourage nations from borrowing a lot to try to stimulate their economies. So I think that's sort of part of the problem. Is just recessions come along and you want policy makers to be able to respond to them, and the European system is really designed not to do that, not to allow a run-up of debt, not to allow an expansion of the money supply to try to stimulate things. But a lot of it was sort of endemic to the euro, that you think of Europe, it's got countries that are very well organized and have high productivity. You've got some other countries that are less developed and they're coming along more slowly. And so the northern European countries, for the most part, had pretty successful economies before the euro. Germany, France, the Netherlands, Belgium, England, places like that. And the southern periphery had more of a history of higher unemployment and a lot of ups and downs of their economies and inflation. And so the hope was, by joining together in the euro, that the sort of poorer nations would have the stability of the richer nations and would become really attractive places to invest. And so, before the euro, the sort of the equilibrium was the rich countries were very safe places to invest and the poor countries were less safe, and that sort of limited how much capital flew in there. After the euro, people got thinking, it's all Europe, it's all in the same currency, that if we invest there, there's no chance that the value of our money will evaporate or be taken over by dictators or something like that. So the thought was that the stability that would have been well known in the northern parts of Europe would now extend everywhere. And so a lot of capital flowed in. And it wasn't just government borrowing. A lot of it, most of it was private borrowing. Again, all these people who thought that Greece and Italy and Spain were essentially the same as Germany. And so a lot of capital flew in, sort of expecting northern European levels of productivity, but it just wasn't. And the boom, all the capital flowing into these poor parts of Europe, they really pushed up wages and prices. And once the boom was over, you had a lot of overpaid workers. Their wages were too high, and then as a result, their jobs just went away. Europe got hit by the financial shock through a lot of bad debt, and then a lot of bad European debt, and then this problem of really messed up wages, that the wages are just too high for much of the continent. And the usual way to fix something like this would be governments would borrow a lot to try to stimulate things, and you'd have really easy monetary policy, that you cut interest rates and you pump a lot of money out there, and actually probably try to get some inflation. And with inflation, with higher inflation, it works as a transfer from lenders to borrowers. That you lend somebody money, and then there's inflation when they pay you back. It isn't worth as much as expected, so they're better off, you're worse off. And so that would actually be helpful in Europe, that that the borrowers are in a lot of trouble. They really can't afford to pay it. But with inflation, it kind of works itself out, that the borrowers have to pay back less, and it's actually a cheaper way to work it out than fighting about it. And then it would also fix the wage problem fairly quickly. That if we don't have inflation, if we have very low inflation, then if wages are too high in some areas, we have to wait for those things to drop. And wages are really slow to adjust downward. That when people have had one wage, they really are reluctant to go and take a lower wage. And firms, it's very hard to cut the pay of workers who are currently there. So it's easier to fire people than to cut wages. That if you cut wages, everybody's mad, and the good workers leave. If you fire people, you fire the people you want, the not so good workers, and everybody else is motivated because, like, oh my goodness, I could be next. Fortunately, the European Central Bank was designed to really target inflation instead of anything else. And that, at the time, it seemed like a really good way to do it, like an equilibrium where we do the right thing in the long run, and then people have low inflationary expectations, and so it's much easier to keep inflation down. And the thought was, if we just kept inflation off the table, we'd be less apt to get into financial crises. And then the ECB has strong rules about sovereign debt, how indebted countries can be. And that's become something of a problem. And then I think they just have a mistaken notion about where these countries can raise tax and cut spending enough to get themselves back to economic health, and that's sort of the wrong thing to do. And then they're firmly committed to this price level stability, and so I think the ECB has become a problem. I think the simplest thing was the European Central Bank would announce an inflation target that's reasonably high, 5, 6, 7%. So we're going to have this over the next 5 years, and we're going to commit to that. And another thing they could do is they could announce that they will buy sovereign debt of the really troubled nations. And say, that we're going to do this to keep their interest rates down. And that helps these countries with their budgets. That, as it is now, there's a lot of concern about these countries becoming insolvent, not being able to raise enough taxes to cover their debt. But if interest rates are low, then they're okay. That sort of this multiple equilibrium thing, that if everybody sort of believes in Italy, then they're willing to hold its debt without a lot of interest. And so Italy doesn't have to pay a lot of interest, so its budget is in surplus, and its debt can fall. If people don't believe in Italy, then I'm not going to hold an Italian bond unless I get seriously high interest on it. And then Italy can't afford that, and then it heads toward spiraling default. And if we could do something to make their economies better, make it easier for workers to get jobs, which I think would go with an inflation target, and keep their interest rates under control by the European Central Bank saying, look, we're going to target interest rates. We're not going to as long as these countries don't behave in very profligate ways, we'll keep their interest rates under control. As long as they're sort of working toward a long run solution, then you'd see these countries fiscally in much better shape, and from an employment standpoint in much better shape, and that means people working and paying taxes, which helps as well. Our economy isn't very good right now, and it'd be really nice if other economies were booming, because then they could buy our Chryslers and our movies, and they'd send their kids to overpriced colleges and things like that. And with Europe in trouble, then they're not going to buy as much of our stuff, and so that doesn't help us. Asia, I'm not so sure. That there are a lot of countries that are doing just fine, and having Europe in trouble makes it easier to buy German cars and French wine and things like that. And so there are countries that are okay, and so the crisis hurts their exports, but makes it easier to import nice things. Asia, I am not sure. I think of China growing and needing more resources, and a world in recession is generally less resource demand, and so it's easier for China to afford the fuel and some other things at once. But in the long run, Europe and U.S. will get their acts together, and those effects will go away. I don't know. I think they're pretty committed to sticking to the long, hard road, saying we're going to go with austerity, and so it takes 5, 7, 10 years, but we'll have done it the right way. And I'm not particularly worried about inflation. I think if it spirals out of control, it's terrible. But I think we're in pretty good shape about we understand how it gets out of control, and I think we're doing we have the ability to knock it down. And so having a period of controlled higher inflation with everybody understanding it's coming down after that, after we think wages have adjusted to appropriate levels. I think that's I think they're over worried about inflation. I really don't know. I mean, it's this multiple equilibria thing. We don't know. That in the U.S., I know what's going to happen. We're slowly going to work our way out of this recession. That by 8 years from now, probably have unemployment down to like 5%. Europe, I do not know. That if they don't play it right, and the interest rates on the pigs, Portugal, Italy, Greece, and Spain jumps too much, those things jump too much, those countries will be heading toward default. And if they don't work out some agreement with Greece, Greece may just break out of the euro, and it'd be a very difficult thing. But go with the drachma or something like that, the new drachma, and that this commitment to a very low inflation target may blow the euro up. That should be a hard thing and a chaotic thing.
Thank you, Professor Witte. Now it's your turn to let us know what you think about the European debt crisis by leaving a comment below.
If you like what you saw, share this video with your friends and spread the word about NBR. Visit our website at northwesternbusinessreview.org, and don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter. And also keep your eyes out on any contests that we're holding. Our last one was actually a Kindle Fire. Now that could be you.
My name is Stephen Montero. I'm a Medill sophomore, and I can't wait to read the next NBR article on my new Kindle Fire.
Thanks for watching. We look forward to seeing you next time.